Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the public meeting with the Standing Committee of Economic Development and Environment. My name is Robert Hawkins. I am the MLA for Yellowknife Centre. I'm also the chair of the Standing Committee on Economic Development and Environment. Before we begin, I'll ask members to officially introduce themselves on the record, and we will begin on my right, and we will work our way around the room and then come back to me. Please, if you please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Julian Morse. I'm the MLA for Frame Lake here in Yellowknife.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. George Nirsu, the MLA for the Mackenzie Delta.
Good morning. Welcome to committee. My name is Danny McNeely, representing the Sahtu region.
Thank you, committee. For those who are in the room, and virtually we have at least one member, I see. If the member would like to introduce themselves for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Kate Reed. I am the MLA for Great Slave here in Yellowknife. Thank you.
Thank you. And joining us as well is a member who will now introduce themselves.
Good morning. I'm Shauna Morgan, MLA for Yellowknife North.
Thank you, committee and members. So today, thank you, everyone. We are joined by the representative from NTPC, so Power Corp, to receive a technical briefing on residual heat systems as part of the committee's study on economic diversification and renewable heating. Mr. Williams will lead us through the presentation in a moment, and of course, if he has any opening remarks before we get into the presentation, they're certainly welcome. That said, I, including our millions of subscribers around the world on social media, look forward to hearing what you have to say, and we are eager as ever for this particular presentation. Mr. Williams, please begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Standing Committee. Thanks for having me. I'm here at the committee's request to provide an overview and technical presentation on the residual heating systems that NTPC uses throughout the region. We have some experience leading back prior to even NTPC's creation. I believe this works like. So what is a residual heating system? Residual heating systems are widely used within NTPC's diesel natural gas power plants, often referred to as waste heat recovery systems. The system extracts heat that would otherwise be rejected to atmosphere from an operating engine and repurposes as building heat or process heat. This process is not unlike the heater core found in the internal combustion engines that most of us drive every day. The systems generally use a water and glycol mix as the heat transfer fluid. Fluid is carried through networks of pipes, valves, heat exchangers, pumps, so on. The most common use within NTPC's facilities are for building heat and block heating for the generators that are not online, so offline generators. However, in some cases, nearby infrastructure can also utilize this heat to heat buildings or provide process heat where necessary. Some examples of process heating would be heating incoming water from water treatment plant facilities or freeze protection on sewer lines. How does it work? The system diagram I have up now shows how a typical diesel generator with a heat recovery system works. Essentially, the heat generated by burning the fuel in the reciprocating engine results in a conversion of the energy into a few forms. Some of that fuel energy is converted into work and used to spin the generator itself. In this particular example, I believe that's the orange piece of the pie at 39%. And ultimately, that's what's producing energy for the grid itself. Some of the fuel energy is converted to heat and is rejected to the jacket water system. I believe that's the gray at the bottom, the 24%. Like I said earlier, this can either be rejected to atmosphere by the radiator or extracted by the heat recovery system for use elsewhere. Some of the energy remains in the combustion stream, about 32% in total, of which a portion can be extracted. The extracted proportion is to sort of the blue color, 22%. And there's always some loss, which is the 10% piece of the pie there. The remaining energy right at the top is the 6%, which is converted to friction or heat, vibration, we hear as noise, or just radiant energy that comes off the generator or alternator itself. In a case where the residual heating system is connected to nearby buildings, the heated fluid is pumped to the heat transfer station in that building, allowing them to use the heat in place of fuel-fired boilers. Just note that the numbers shown in the pie chart here are for demonstration purposes only and can vary significantly depending on the manufacturers of the units, the installation, or the load strictly on the generator. Typical system layouts. One of the more complex district heating systems or heat recovery systems is the Audrey system in Fort McPherson. Originally, it was connected to the water treatment plant and canvas shop, Hamlet swimming pool, Hamlet office. You can see in the photos, it's a little bit difficult to see, but there's a number of silver-colored lines. Those are the supply and return lines going to the school, and it goes up behind the recreation center. This is obviously a very old picture. It's well before the plant burned in 2004. The Hamlet pool and office were demolished. The rec center, I believe, was also demolished. Tent and canvas came off during the fire, the power plant fire to be specific. And the water treatment plant was pulled off the system before it was rebuilt. The sole customer on the service now is Chief Julius School. Outside of Fort McPherson, NTPC also supplies heat to the water treatment plant facility in Inuvik for treating the water, as well as freeze protection on their utility system. There's also systems in Fort Liard and Fort Simpson and other places as well. In the case of a district heating system like the Audrey system we just discussed, energy transfer station would be required at the customer's facility. The water glycol mix from the generators at the power plant are not shared with the greater system. This ensures both reliability and redundancy for all the systems involved, including the power plant and the customer's own backup heating. Heat exchangers are used in this case and simply pass a heated fluid by a cooler fluid using tubes or plates inside the heat exchanger, effectively transferring the heat from one system to another. Depending on the need and the complexity of the system, the amount of energy that is transferred can actually be metered. In some systems, flow meters measure the volume of fluid flowing over a set period. When combined with temperature sensors and known fluid density, the energy can be calculated in real time. Complex systems can coordinate heat delivery through the use of automated valves, interconnected with the customer's boilers to prevent things like short cycling. All this equipment will be located on the customer's site. The picture up in the presentation right now is of one of the servicing, one of the flow meters that's actually in service in Fort McPherson. So there's a number of benefits of residual heating systems. One of the primary benefits is an improved power plant efficiency. Essentially, we utilize heat that would otherwise be rejected to the atmosphere or need to be replaced by another system like a boiler. It reduces the heating costs significantly for NTPC-owned buildings and systems. It has the ability to reduce cost of heating for nearby customers. These arrangements can often lead to reduced GHGs and can improve heating system reliability by providing a secondary source of heating. Larger residual heating systems can also help integrate the power plant into community, which is a benefit but can also bring a number of challenges as well. So to highlight some of those challenges, large residual heating systems often look to maximize the heat available from a power plant. However, the electrical load in a community has a direct relationship with the amount of heat available. For example, if the electrical load is low overnight and the ambient temperature is also low, the heat available in the system can sometimes drop below the demand. Proximity of the infrastructure to the power plant is a key consideration when considering a district heating system or residual heating system in this case. The required pumping horsepower and piping heat losses over long distances can reduce or negate those benefits of a residual heating system. Existing systems can also be affected by the replacement of the power plant facility, whereas the community requests the power plant be moved further outside of town for noise and emissions considerations, often making the installation or continued operation of an existing system too high a cost for the customers or NTPC in that matter. And finally, other challenges, the complexity of the heat recovery system can also play into, pardon me, I don't do this very often.
You're doing just fine. Don't
Thank
worry.
you.
Remember, you're only talking to me. Don't worry about the millions of subscribers around the world.
Appreciate it. The last challenge, I guess, is how the system can only deliver a heating temperature with respect to the engine load and the engine manufacturer. If you were looking to supply heat to a building like a museum that requires a very specific temperature at all times, that's something that's very difficult for a power plant to provide. Whereas process heating at a water treatment plant, you could easily swing 10, 12, even 15 degrees Celsius without causing any serious issues. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I will now go to committee, including online, if they have any questions. Just looking for members. I have Mr. McNeely, Mr. Morse, and we'll proceed from there, as well as I've got a couple myself. So again, questions will flow through the chair. Members are, very familiar with the process, and I'll then pass it to you to answer. Thank you. Mr. McNeely, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the presentation. Knowing some of these smaller communities, one of my first question, has there been a community feasibility study on the power generating plants that are within the community to see if it's worthwhile? I'll say Det'anchogh, for example. The power plant's actually right in the middle of the community. And there's homes nearby, there's an elder's home nearby. So I'm just curious if a feasibility study was done on providing that residual heat to those buildings nearby. I would say an assessment, a feasibility assessment on where it could be applicable. Thank you.
Thank you. When you're ready, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I'm not aware of any specific study that was done specific on the example of Det'anchogh. There's been numerous feasibility studies on residual heating systems done over the years. Probably too many to list if I'm totally honest. I would say that often we focus on the power plants that have significant capability to supply heat. In the example you used for Det'anchogh, the main generators that are on are fairly small, and so that the heat energy available, like I was showing in that sort of pie chart piece there, is probably not much in excess of what the power plant itself needs to keep the building warm and keep the generators that are offline warm. It's not to say that there isn't available heat. I'm sure the community can hear the radiators running from time to time. But most heat recovery systems need to be able to support about 80 to 90% of the heating load at all times. And I imagine that Det'anchogh, you would struggle to hit that 80 to 90% number. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, Mr. McNeely, please.
Okay, my follow-up there, Mr. Williams, is what existing communities you have these pilot projects for residual heat? I do believe Aklavik being one. Thank you.
Mr. Williams?
The systems I'm discussing aren't pilot projects necessarily. A lot of them are legacy equipment that was put in when the power plants were put in back in the NTPC days. And all new plants continue to utilize that same technology. Specifically to communities that utilize the heat, I think I was highlighting Inuvik as one of the big winners. I don't believe the town has any backup heating whatsoever. The power plant is the only source of heating for water treatment and freeze protection in the utility system as a whole. Fort Simpson, their water lift station, I may not have that name entirely correct, but utilizes heat from the power plant. But yeah, these systems exist within the power plant regardless of having a customer or not. Whatever heat is not used, it has to be rejected to atmosphere to keep the engines cool, obviously. But yeah, I'm not sure I'm answering your question appropriately.
Can we come back? Can we come back to you, or do you need to feather it out a bit? Ferret it out a bit, I guess.
I'll just throw a suggestion out there, Mr. Chair. Maybe you can get back to the committee on which communities have this residual heat that exists today. I just named one. I think during the 18th Assembly, we had identified Aklavik being one of them. So,
Okay.
you can provide the information to committee. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Williams, if you know off the top of your head, that'd be good, but if not, feel free to email our clerk and she'll forward it on, unless you know the answer.
Like I was saying, I'm happy to provide any answers later as well, but I believe all of but 2 of the NTPC facilities utilize a waste heat recovery system within their facility right now.
Okay, that's perfect, not a problem. And committee, just by way of heads up, committee may send a letter with some additional questions or clarification, so if, we'll have that discussion at the end of the meeting during our debrief process, so. That said, I now have Mr. Morris and Ms. Morgan next, so I'll proceed with Mr. Morris when he's ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I really appreciate NTPC taking the time to come present to us today. I actually was completely unaware of these residual heat systems that have been installed, and I'm interested to hear more about them. I guess my first question is just, do you see there being any potential for expansion of residual heat district heating systems, or is the potential already effectively maxed out through the systems that NTPC provides? I guess, yeah, I think I'm asking a clear question there.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, when you're ready.
Absolutely, there's always opportunities to expand those systems. I think the largest systems tend, like I was highlighting in the presentation, tend to be tapped out for the heat. Again, we need to be able to provide almost 90% of the heating load to whatever customer we are connected with. But other than the very, very small power plants that utilize kind of rad on skid style gensets instead of the remote radiators you would see outside on a power plant. They all utilize these waste heat recovery systems. It's standard issue. The new plants get them. They're integrated into boiler systems on modern power plants that require boilers in case of a BESS system, say that the power plant actually needs to shut down for a period of time. You still have to maintain, say, building heat or engine block heating. But yes, there's always opportunities. I think that sometimes it comes down to the cost of expanding those systems can be in excess of maybe an islanded heating system within a particular building.
Anything further, Mr. Morris?
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, this is an interesting one, I think, for us to consider from a GNWT side, just in terms of planning. I mean, I guess this isn't something that happens very often, but if we ever are going to put a new water treatment plant or something like that in, like you mentioned, facilities like that benefit even more from things like this. So if we can try and group power facilities with those kinds of facilities, it seems like it would be a natural no-brainer to save money on heat generation. And it sounds to me like there's already backup boilers involved. That was going to be my next question, is if anyone was to look into expanding district heat in our communities, just knowing that sometimes, like, I mean, there's a limited amount of heat that you can get from one of these generators. I'm wondering how easy it is it to attach a boiler of some kind to a system like this and augment it that way, so that the heat is either more consistent in temperature or simply just more consistent in this event of power failures or being able to service a larger area. But it seems to me like if we have a small district heating area, that gives us the potential to expand it, I would think, if we were to attach a boiler to it, but I'm not an engineer, so that's why I'm asking you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams on that, if you had some thoughts.
Yeah, historically, there have been systems like that. There's systems elsewhere in the world that can combine that reciprocating engine or even turbines in that respect with boiler systems. And they don't necessarily all need to be on the same form of energy. You could have something on diesel, something on biomass, something on natural gas. It wouldn't matter as long as the quality of the heat, so the main temperature of the system is the same. And that's often where the complexities come into. To bring diesel engine output temperatures up to a level that you could share with, with a typical boiler system, you need to install exhaust gas heat recovery units, which are expensive and complex, but they are installed in numerous systems within NTPC. But yeah, if you can't share the same fluid temperature across the whole system, there would be a lot of problems with trying to maintain that or even integrate it.
Thank you for that. Yes, you could see the heater drawing down the heat from the power plant quite easily, so you'd be heating in the wrong direction if you're not careful. Ms. Morgan, you have a question, and then followed by Mr. Narasu. So when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to build on my colleague's questions just now, I was wondering how you currently, in the systems that do exist, like in Fort McPherson and Inuvik, deal with, say, variable heat loads coming from the power plant. I think it's mentioned in the presentation, obviously if there's less electricity use, especially at night, say, then the supply might go down significantly. So in the systems that do exist, how do they cope or respond to the variable heating loads? I mean, there must be, backup systems of heat. And I guess a question related to that too is this, in the systems that do exist, is this the primary source of heat, or is this just sort of a minor supplementary source of heat for those other buildings? Is this the backup, or what other sources of backup exist for those buildings? That's a large suite of questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Mr. Williams, with that suite of questions. Please.
Yeah, it's complicated. I think that depending on what system we talk about, the answer changes. If we talk strictly about Inuvik, there is no backup for the water treatment plant that I'm aware of. I think they can have some building heat backup, but strictly for the treatment of water and the heating of the utility system, the power plant is the main source of heat, and I believe the only source of heat. Yeah, your question kind of sprawled, so I'm having a little troubles remembering all the details. Yeah, I think there was a part of your question was about the variability and sort of the control of that. Again, matching the power plant's potential output or nominal output of heat with the load is very important. And I think Inuvik is a very good success story in that, is that the heat that's generally available and would otherwise, like I was saying, be rejected to atmosphere is now being used to heat water, treat water, and maintain the utility in that community. There is PLCs on either side that are talking to one another over, typical LAN connections. It's a very complex system in Inuvik, but in the most basic form, the system says we want to treat water and we need heat. That signal is sent to the power plant. Power plant says okay, and it diverts heating away from its radiators and towards its heat recovery system. It ramps the pumps and pushes basically all the heat required. I think in the case of Inuvik, unless there's a mechanical breakdown, it can provide 100% of the heating required. That is not always the case. Like I was saying in the presentation, some systems, depending on if you're running a smaller generator overnight or if you had the same heating demand in the summer for some other reason, like a water treatment plant potentially. That small unit may not be able to provide all the heating, so in that case, backup heating would be required. And I think Fort Simpson, you're going way back in time in my memory, but Fort Simpson supplies most of the heat required for the lift station. But I believe they have full backup in that case. So again, depends on the community, depends on when it was integrated, legacy equipment, all those details.
I think you covered most of it. Ms. Morgan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can these heat recovery systems, are they always installed at the beginning when you're, putting in or installing a brand-new generator, or are they often installed after the fact? Can they be an add-on, or does it need to happen when you're replacing the diesel generator sort of at the outset? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I can answer that, but you're the one being asked.
Both. You can, it's not necessarily about when the generator itself is replaced, it's more about the facility. When the facility is built, it often requires a larger footprint for that equipment, the heat exchangers, the pumps, everything else that goes along with it. So, the facility has to grow in size, the power plant itself has to grow in size. But they can absolutely be retrofitted later in life. I think there's numerous cases within NTPC when we were moving to a more modern genset with, say, dual circuited cooling, and now there is an opportunity to pull more heat off those units and utilize even just within NTPC's world, and that has been done. But retrofitting a very old facility probably comes with a lot of challenges versus putting it in right from the get-go is probably a better idea.
Except for potential. Still need potential. That said, I now have Mr. Nerisu when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The slide presentation, you noted that that picture from Fort McPherson, that was the old power plant that burnt down, and was there modifications made in the new power plant to improve residual heat to potential users, or is there room for has there been improvements made in that new power plant that's been built? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. When you're ready, Mr. Williams.
I would preface this with I wasn't around in 2004 when that plant burnt, so I'm not super familiar with the old facility. I know that Fort McPherson is the second most complicated heat recovery system that NTPC has, second only to Inuvik. Utilizes exhaust gas heat recovery, multiple PLCs, a lot of systems that make it as most efficient as it can be. I think at this point I think age caught up to it at one point, and it needed a bit of midlife effort put in to bring the system back to where it was, and I think there was numerous customers for various reasons that left the system, whether I think there was three of the buildings were demolished over time. And I think that speaks to one of the biggest challenges with these systems is if anything within the system moves, if the power plant has to move, if one of those buildings is moved, and that's quite common, communities choose to create new subdivisions or new areas or change zoning even, that can directly affect the system. So speaking directly to the efficiency, I think the Fort McPherson system, the Audrey system in general, is about as efficient as it can be on the power plant side.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Anything further, Mr. Nerisu?
Yes, just noting that some of the buildings that use this system were torn down, the swimming pool, the old Hamlet office. Is there any room for buildings within the facility of the power plant to tap into this heat source? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Nerisu. Mr. Williams on that thought? Or-
I don't know offhand what the availability of heat is there. That's a joint venture with GDC and NTPC, so I would have to go back to the board of that group to understand what is available. But yeah, I'm assuming they would always be interested in looking at opportunities.
Thank you for that. Just 2 seconds. You got that, right? Yeah, we may follow up with that one specifically. We don't have any members on the list for questions, but I'll just jump out with one and see if it stirs any sort of extra thoughts. Can you tell me how you measure some of this heat opportunities, and do you study about how much money is being saved with customers? Now, in this particular case, I know it sounds funny. NTPC is, a corporation, but the GNWT, say, for example, school, in theory, we own both. But do you study the amount of money saved or evaluate that, the efficiency in the sense of the overall value, whether it's lower GHGs, and again, the general sense of how it operates? Any thoughts, Mr. Williams?
At the onset of a new system, absolutely. That would be a core part of the feasibility of any of those systems to understand, the cost benefit of these systems. There's a lot of capital dollars that need to go in to make these systems efficient and work appropriately over long periods of time. And those need to be stacked against, obviously, other options like biomass or natural gas or just standalone oil-fired boilers. Yeah, later in life, the Inuvik system in particular, they looked at one of the studies that was done. I'm struggling to remember the dates, probably the late 20-teens. Looked at supplying heat to the RCMP, a detachment there, as well as numerous other buildings. Ultimately, the cost of the installation didn't make it feasible at that time, but I mean, as oil prices change, as energy prices change, we can continue to look back and at some of the old studies and determine whether the feasibility has changed.
Are you aware of, sort of same question, just a different angle on it, are you aware of any current ongoing assessments on where they're evaluating it? So in other words, they've lowered the cost of, say, this building next door over the past 10 years, been able to save on general fuel. Like, I'm just trying to find out when the last system was installed and they were managing sort of the oversight of saying, this was a really good idea because theory actually translated into the practical savings or efficiencies. Just, Mr. Williams, any thoughts on that one?
On strictly the NTPC side, it's always beneficial for us to utilize waste heat. Yeah, I don't think there's any financially any way that we could do it cheaper within the facility. The Inuvik water treatment plant, I believe, was upgraded in 2018 or 2019. That's probably the most recent update to the system. There were significant upgrades to pumps and control systems and everything there. That would have included a number of economic analysis to understand whether the community itself was going to go and provide their own process heating and own heat for the utility system. Ultimately, the NTPC's offer for the cost of heat was satisfactory, and they stayed on the system. That's been in operation for decades. Yeah, any recent studies that I'm aware of, no. But again, every time a plant is replaced, that's often a question that's asked.
Okay. And maybe just to clear up one question, you'd mentioned the water plant in Inuvik. Just to be clear, it's a closed system, whereas it doesn't have any secondary heating systems, only from the NTPC? Just to clarify, Mr. Williams?
Yeah, it's not an NTPC-owned facility,
Right.
so I have to be a little bit careful with that. However, to my knowledge, they have no secondary heating source whatsoever for the process heat or utility heating. I believe their building heat is separate from ours for freeze protection. But yes, all of the heat, I believe, it comes from the power plant in Inuvik, both facilities, both the EMD and K plant there.
Okay. Well, it's definitely a definition of it must be working, because if they haven't needed that and there's been no critical delay or long enough to be concerning, I mean, a water treatment plant can be maintained quite low, but that said, yeah, pretty serious. Folks, does anyone, Mr. Morris has more questions? See how it goes. Mr.
I
Morris.
do, thanks. Yeah, I want to build a bit on Mr. McNeely's question there and look forward to seeing an answer if you're able to provide one in writing, kind of areas where this is being provided and areas where you see potential. But first, a technical question. I want to better understand the challenge you were speaking to needing to provide a uniform amount of heat across a system. Like, I would have thought, you know, if the heat coming out of the power system isn't all that adequate, that could be run into a boiler, heated up, and then run out into the system. So that's how I would think of it. But again, not an engineer, so if you can help us understand that. And I have a follow-up question as well. But I'm curious about this, the kind of technical challenges with getting systems like this up and running, if we were to look at recommending that this kind of thing be expanded. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Mr. Williams, when you're ready.
I think the challenge is less on the district heating side and less on the boiler side and more so on the power plant side itself. I didn't mean to describe it as something that was impossible, but it can be difficult is what I'm trying to say. NTPC's primary mission is to keep the lights on, provide electricity. If something this system, a planned system or a current system is doing affects that, that's a large issue. Most diesel gensets, even natural gas reciprocating gensets, have about an 8 or 10 degree temperature drop across their cooling system. If you provide water back at a lower temperature, they only have a very set amount of heat they can provide back to the system. Ultimately, that starts to drop the temperature of the engine. When you drop the temperature of the engine, the components inside the engine have tighter tolerances, you get more wear. It's all just bad for those units. They, as robust of a backbone that diesel provides us, there is things that they can't deal with, and running cold is one of them. So definitely the controls aspect of matching a bunch of diesels in a community with a heating system can be complex, and that comes with costs. So I think that's where I was sort of leaning on for that particular question earlier.
Mr. Morris, when you're ready.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, so the natural question that comes then for me is, do you see there being a potential in any communities in the NWT or just generally for expansion of district heat as supported through our existing gen sets? Or do you think that this is maybe not a thread that's worth pulling, just to be very frank?
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
I truly believe it's a case-by-case basis. I think when the power plant is integrated into the community planning, I think there's a lot of opportunities there, especially with process heating type customers. When a facility like a power plant is coming to the end of life and it's being moved outside the community for many reasons, oftentimes that opportunity is lost. And then they can only use it within. Now, if there was some planning to move commercial or industrial heating loads out towards that plant and later in life, obviously the opportunity comes back. But yeah, I think Fort McPherson is a perfect example where there was numerous heating loads, and the community chose to move those buildings or build new buildings because they need to be replaced at some point, obviously. So yeah, it's a complicated question, I guess, to answer, but the basis of it is, when the opportunity is there, we want to take it, but they do over time go away. And I think that's an important point, is that these types of systems can often stabilize the cost of heating over a long period of time, but those heating agreements need to be over a long period of time. Building all this infrastructure, modifying the power plants is expensive. Pouring money into something that's only going to provide benefit for a few years is never a good financial choice. But those long-term agreements, between communities and the power plant facility, it can be beneficial to both.
Thank you. I would add sizing matters,
Yes.
Yeah, significantly, based on the relationship you talked about at the end. We could put a huge system in, but if there's no customers, we mess up the efficiency of the power process. Does anyone else in committee have any more questions? And if not, Mr. Williams, you look like you got off easy. Questions are very easy. You seem to know. You seem very good at what you know. That said, Mr. Williams, unless you have any final comments at this particular time, do you have any final comments?
No, thank you very much for having me.
All right, Mr. Williams, I want to thank you for coming to our technical briefing on this matter. The subject matter is of great interest to the committee, how we can do things, better, more efficient, and certainly support opportunities that make sense. Committee will probably follow up with a little bit of a letter. It may include a few extra additional questions that weren't asked today, but that said, we appreciated your time. And in closing, I just want to say we look forward to the committee looks forward to further study on this particular matter, and you never know, we may call you folks up for more questions, or if we happen to be in the area, we may even want to go look at one of the facilities and how it works. And to end the proceedings, I want to thank you, and of course, as always, our millions of subscribers around the world tuning in to these great hearings. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.